What's up guys, Everything Apple Pro here, and do iPhones actually get faster, or do updates just make them slower so the next one that comes out seems faster? That is the question of the day. Now this is an ambitious video that I've been wanting to do for so long. It just took me a long time to find the iPhones on their original versions, but I did manage to find an iPhone 4 on iOS 4, 4S on iOS 5, 5 on iOS 6, iPhone 5S on iOS 7, 6 on iOS 8, and iPhone 6S on an early version of iOS 9. Whew. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how all of these iPhones compare on their native iOS versions. And we've all felt it. The longer we own our iPhones, the more updates we apply, they just seem slower with time. With this video, I really want to just shift things into perspective and give us a good idea of, a few years down the road how these iPhones ended up. And I will be cross-comparing some of these to their most recent versions. So I do have all these phones on the most recent 9.3.2 and the iPhone 4 on iOS 7.1.2. So you may be wondering, why not go all the way and test every iPhone? Just because these are the phones that are actually still being used today. So in a startup test, on the very top, I have the original versions. On the bottom, I have the newest versions. So it's kind of interesting just to see, comparing not only the iPhones to each other on the original versions, but also to the more recent. And there's a lot going on, guys, here, so a few playbacks might be required. But anyways, so number one, iPhone 6S on the latest 9.3.2. After that, the iPhone 6 on iOS 9.3.2 as well. After that, you can basically see that iPhones were faster on their older versions, besides the 6 and 6S. And all of our suspicions here are basically confirmed because the older devices are so much slower to boot on the newer firmwares. On the older ones, they were much more capable, they were in their prime, and now they've just been bogged down by all these features, so they become much slower. The iPhone 4S, which was in only third place in the original versions, is now in last place on the most latest 9.3.2, an update that should have never materialized really. So yeah, there is the startup test. The two iPhones that actually got faster with the updates, surprisingly, were the iPhone 6S and iPhone 6. So 9.3.2 doing some magic on these guys. Just wait until iOS 10 though, it won't be so positive. But anyways, let's move on to system animations. So starting with activating the app switcher, it was kind of interesting to note that it started fastest in the middle with the 5 and 5S and kind of spread out to the edges. Now using it productively though is definitely a lot better on iOS 9. You can delete more apps faster. So next up, notification center, kind of slower on the newer firmwares to drop down, but still not too much of a difference here. And activating spotlight search, there was a sweet spot with the 5 and 5S again. Seems like they were good phones to own on their original firmwares. Next up with Siri, to activate it, they actually all came up at the very same time. Actually getting results was a different story. What time is it in Cairo, Egypt? So the iPhone 6S was first, followed by the 5S and 4S, huh? Well, that's quite surprising. Alright, so let's move on to app launching. Launching the settings application, again with the 5 and 5S. They launched it absolutely fastest, the app loaded fastest, and it was available to use just a few milliseconds faster. Doesn't seem like much, but again, it adds up all the time. And going into submenus, the iPhone 5S had the sharpest animation. It's not all drawn out like it is in iOS 8 and 9. So moving on to the camera application, launching it pretty much straight down the line. So going from the iPhone 6S all the way down. On the latest versions though, it's a little bit of a different story. So the iPhone 4S came in last, whereas it wasn't last on the original versions. So next, opening up maps and loading it, the iPhone 4S was first, followed by the 5S. Newer isn't better here. And this is all from a cleared app switcher, so these apps aren't open in the background. Loading weather, the older devices loaded it a little bit better than the newer ones. That is very surprising. So next up, the App Store, another web-based application. The 5S was first, followed by 6S, then the iPhone 5. I'm very surprised at the results I'm seeing. Original firmwares for these devices are actually faster in some cases. Not in every single one, but many times they are. So the iPhone 6S still shines and outshines almost everywhere. That is apparent. The iTunes Store especially. So how about some mundane things? The messaging application was quick on all of these. There was no delay like it happened in later versions. And even with the phone application, something we all use, it was actually ready to go on older firmwares faster, so you could start dialing in numbers earlier than on later versions. Weird. And then the music application, so older, actually pretty dang fast here. The newer versions do have Apple Music, so that takes a while to load as well. Next, a web page loading test. So the 5S was first, followed by 6S, then 6. And here is somewhere where software isn't so much of an influence as, the actual hardware power. Next up, loading reddit.com, pretty similar results. The iPhone 6S is king here as well, very, very fast, followed down the line by the other devices. A lot of ties in here as well. So let's test some game loading times. Let me tell you, it was extremely difficult to find a game that would run on iOS 4, iOS 4.2.9 to be exact. How I found this iPhone 4 on that, don't even ask, because I don't know. But anyways, loading Angry Birds, pretty straightforward down the line loading times. Again, the software here is outshadowed by the hardware power. So next up, loading Temple Run. There wasn't much of a delay though on the older devices, so I can certainly see that they were in their prime. They loaded things so much faster. And overall, it wasn't too bad here. Not too much of a difference between older and newer. So next up, some benchmarks. These I did go ahead and cross compare to the latest versions, and in almost all cases, they were slower on the most latest version. The iPhone 4 was the only one to have a higher number versus its original firmware. So wow, iOS 9 did a number on these devices for sure. All lower scores. Next up, a speed test. So again, I actually did notice that there was a little bit of a lower score on the newer versions, but not in all cases. So kind of interesting to see these results. Time really doesn't treat these devices too well, or should I blame Apple for that? But anyways, guys, that is just about it. I have run through almost all the tests I could think of on these devices. This video was not easy to make. I mean, I'm running with 6 streams of 4K video here. Man, my Mac Pro just cannot take it. I need a new computer. Apple, please release something soon. But anyways, guys, if this video taught you anything, it's do not ever update your iPhone, ever, because you will get bent over and just don't do it. Not really, but it's a sacrifice, guys. More features equals slower performance. That's just how it is. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Leave me a thumbs up if you want. Have a great day. Peace.